They've bestowed the famous 888 onto the young shoulders of Broc. And it's Broc Feeney with the ripper start once again.
It's a big effort. You consider the pressure that Feeney's under, the expectation.
Broke the freaking handle last time I used this thing. You might be wondering why I'm lighting a candle in the first place. I actually absolutely hate candles, but there's a giant piece of shit outside my window. Honda.
This is the car, this is the track, and this is, I'm not sure, but I want to say that this is somebody who's planning on being eaten by an anaconda at some point and then getting out of its stomach. That's just a guess. There is us, and there ahead of us is Broc Feeney, Australian supercar driver, V8 supercar driver, very fast driver. We are starting behind him in P5 as car number 5 with a 21.7, so we're slacking a bit on our qualifiers. It is 19 laps of Road Atlanta. I think it was like 30 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Celsius, so the track is super hot. Car directly ahead of us starting in, I think that was the guy who was actually starting in P3, that Marlboro car. Gets a really rough start. We get around him, so does the guy behind us, so both of us jump him. We are now up into P4 as we head up towards the S's for the first time of the day, and Broc 2 cars ahead of us. My goal wasn't really to catch him. I didn't want to put that pressure on myself, but I thought it would be really cool if we were able to do that. Down the S's for the first time, following Juan Barco through, taking a lot more of the curve than Juan is, and that's actually going to allow us to open up that final S quite a bit more. We get a significantly better run. We are on right behind him, 0.1 seconds behind him. The gap behind us has opened up quite a lot. Teasing a move up the inside, not really looking for it. We weren't going that fast. What I really needed for that to happen was for him to have a poor exit. And that would have probably made mine feel a lot better and possibly given me that move. Ahead of Juan, I mean, Broc is starting to pull away a bit. There is a 1 second between Juan and Broc. And Broc is riding the tailcoats of Francisco Botana 2, who that is his Smurf account. He's a very fast driver. I think his main account is around the same as ours, about 4.5K. He's holding back Broc Feeney at the moment. As car number 14, it looks kind of funny to see 14 holding back Broc, and Broc is definitely looking to get this move done. He's constantly putting his car in the mirrors of the leader at the moment as they cross into lap number 2, and he is going to do it once again, this time staying over there, moving to the inside and braking much later. That's going to send him directly on through. Francisco tries to cut underneath, loses traction a couple of times, manages to gather it up over the hill, losing traction one more time, and me seeing that in the relative has got me a bit excited. It has brought everybody back. It has brought Francisco mainly back to Juan, which is going to give Juan more slipstream down the straight, and Broc at the front has no slipstream, so hopefully it will condense all 4 of us together. Really, really good run this time out, and I think this one might be good enough to look for a move. Juan is going pretty slow, right behind him, tucked to the inside, brake just ever so slightly later. We find ourselves side by side in the corner, leading up to the corner onto the straight. Juan is on the outside. He's going to try and hang it around there. Brakes a little bit too little, and is not able to make that work for himself, so has to slow down a lot to make the corner that lets us through. We now have a 0.3 second gap to Juan behind us, and he is going to be under a bit of pressure from car number 5 behind him. At least I'm hoping he will be. We dropped off a little bit to Francisco, not much, about us 1.2 seconds behind. Francisco does seem to be catching Broc though, so my hope here is that he does catch Broc, and as you know how racing works, they will do some fighting. Broc will absolutely do some defending. I've noticed that a lot of these IRL motorsports drivers, I mean, they basically just drive the sim to have fun and put up a fight and battle, so I assume that will happen if they were to catch. But fast forwarding to lap number 9, we are 2.6 seconds off of Francisco and Broc, about the same distance behind us to Juan, but I was kind of upset. This is lap 9 of 19, so there's a lot more to go, and I felt like they were just going to continue to pull away from me. However, Broc, coming down the S's for the 9th time, gets a little bit unsettled, jumps the curb, and he ends up, gathering it up very well, but I believe that is going to give him a slowdown as he has completely cut the track there. He's still ahead of Francisco, but he should have to slow down pretty soon. I've got an eye on the relative, and he actually doesn't serve it until right here, so he slows down getting onto the straight, and I'm pretty sure that actually added a little bit of time to his slowdown as he drove pretty far without serving it. So we now find ourselves only a second behind Broc, and we definitely have a bit of a better run onto the straight as he had to compromise his by taking that outside line there. whenever this type of situation happens to where I now find myself challenging somebody who I previously didn't feel like I really had a chance of, it gives me a bit of motivation. It's a mental game, and it always helps me to push a little bit more without even noticing. I just take slightly tighter lines, get on the throttle a little bit earlier, and don't brake quite as hard. Manage to keep my car exactly where I need it, crossing the line for my fastest lap, which was a 120.9 of the race, and that was just about what the leaders were running. So if I could maintain that, I should be able to catch them, or at least catch Broc, who is under a second ahead of us now. He is losing time to Francisco in most of these corners, so I'm thinking that it may end up being a fight between me and Broc. And there is no more waiting behind people and waiting for moves for me. I am no longer doing that. I am going to ship it as soon as I see the opportunity to, especially on an IRL driver. I think that's just kind of cool to be able to say that I battled an IRL driver. And by the way, if you haven't seen Broc's driving, you should check it out on YouTube. Just the Australian V8 supercars in general is an absolutely amazing series. This corner seemed to be the one he struggled on the most. That corner that leads onto the straight, I gained a 10th there. And that's one of the most crucial corners, probably the most crucial corner on this track, as it does lead to the main overtaking opportunity. So even if somebody's a little bit faster than you, as long as they kind of drop a 10th or two going onto that corner and you are within range to get slipstream, you should be able to maintain pace. Now into the chicane ahead of us, Broc goes extremely deep, braking late, and we're going to cut back underneath him. As clean as it gets, super satisfying. Tried not to get overly excited. I did take a lot more of that curve than I needed to when this happened. It felt really good to have a move as clean as that. Totally didn't hold us back whatsoever. We were able to drive a full pace lap. It wasn't the fastest lap. It was a 21.5, so half a second slower than our previous lap, and Broc is directly on our tail, so the fight is not over yet. The position is not solidified. He takes a much cleaner line than me through the beginning of the S's at the top of that hill, and dropping down into the downhill S's. I think this is where I shine compared to him, or at least in this race, that's how it felt. As going through there, I do gain a couple of tenths. My exit wasn't fantastic, and he's able to make up a little bit of time, about a tenth, as he is also soaking up slipstream. But the fact that I was able to gain a tenth through the S's made me feel a lot more confident. And through the most crucial corner on the track, that is really, I think, what separated us. I was able to take it just about as consistently as I ever had, gaining 2 tenths on him there onto the straight. And as long as you can do that as the leading car, if you can separate yourself just enough there, you should be able to keep them behind you into the chicane, as the slipstream's not that strong. He does get right up next to me in the braking zone though, and I mean, I was definitely braking a little bit too hard, but it's better safe than sorry as the leading car there. If I would have sent it too deep, you know, it could have been a repeat of exactly what happened between me and Broc just a lap ago. Crossing onto lap number 12, we've got him at 3 tenths, so he's still kind of in that perfect range to get past on the straight if he maintains this gap, which is, I mean, the most crucial part of this track. I like to think of it as kind of like an American Mount Panorama, which he should know very well as an Australian. You have this section where it gets very sketchy. You really have to push the limits of the track and of the car, of the grip, and then you have this long straight. So it's basically trying to stick with them through the sketchy section, and then you just need a good run onto the straight, and that's how you make your overtakes a lot of the time. It's looking pretty good for him at this point. Only 2 corners to the straight, and he's about 3 tenths behind, which is literally perfect for him. However, turning onto the straight, he misses the apex, which means he probably sent it in a little too hot initially, had to slow down the car a little bit, and is going to hurt his run all of the way down the straight. Now, yes, he has slipstream, but as I've just said before, I mean, I don't think it's strong enough to make the difference of 4 tenths when you didn't get as good of a run as the leading car. By the end of the chicane, as we come out to cross the next lap, he is going to be right back on us, literally a tenth behind us. So, I mean, he's definitely making that time back up. But as long as I can just continue to have this pattern stand, then I should be fairly safe, except from maybe a righteous dive bomb. He actually brakes a little early on lap number 13, going into the S's, which backs him up ever so slightly. If I can continue to push this gap, try and expose that, I don't know if it was necessarily a mistake. I think it was strategic from him, as perhaps he's looking for a better run out of the S's. But looking at the relative, that's definitely not what happened. His time begins to fall as he completely loses grip, car sends itself into a slide and he cuts the track, so he should have to serve a slowdown as well as get his car back up to speed. Fortunately for him, car number 1 was far enough behind that it doesn't look like he's going to be able to pass him, at least not here. Although, I don't know, Broc does still have to serve that slowdown, so that could bring him back significantly. I'm not sure. Either way, let's go, baby. I'm in P2. I've got 6.9 seconds to Broc, and there's only 6 laps left remaining. Francisco 3.4 seconds up the road, and looking at our lap times, I mean, they're not super far off, but I don't need to be running similar laps to him right now. I need to be running better laps if I'm going to catch him, and it just wasn't really looking like that. We were running, at best, the exact same laps, and that's one of his worst laps and one of my better laps. So I don't think that the possibility was really there. Lap number 16, and Broc is under pressure from car number 1. Gets a little bit of a slide exiting the S's onto like the middle straight, I guess you would call this. And car number 1 is going to not quite look for the move. I thought he was there. He definitely could have. A little bit of a send, a little bit of a dive bomb there, but may have been smart as he's waiting for the straight. Broc completely misses the apex once again. Very similar line to what happened when he was behind us, and he is really being rode by car number 1. Moving over to the outside, one's going to take the inside into the chicane on Road Atlanta. Either or can work. It really depends on how well you are on your brakes and if you can find the grip to take that perfect line on either side, inside or outside. This scenario, Broc is going to send it super deep. He claims the inside of the chicane and maintains his position ahead of car number 1. You can't make a move here as car number 1. It's not smart. It's a very big pinch point, so he smartly sits behind him as they cross onto lap number 17. Broc showing a semi-defensive like tease there to the inside, not going to commit to it, and they're going to continue to just go one after the other onto the next lap. Skipping forward just a little bit as we head towards the straight, so a couple of corners here, and we know that this is Broc's worst corner. There's not that many laps left remaining. Broc gets into the dirt on the outside, completely misses the apex. Car number 1 once again taking a very clean line there, definitely compromised to not run into the back of Broc, but he takes a much finer line there, which should allow him a better run. Soaking up slipstream for just a second. He honestly may have been too close to have that slipstream really work in his favor. He is going to move to the outside, though. It looks like his nose is ahead of Broc's. Broc brakes extremely well here. He claims the inside very early on of the first bit of the chicane. They go side by side through the second bit, which should allow Broc a better run, and it looks like it might. It's definitely less distance to travel for car number 1 on the inside, and they're going to send it side by side through the final corner. However, car number 1 definitely does a little bit more of a lift than Broc and ends up settling back behind him as they cross onto the penultimate lap. So not much longer to go. 2 laps left in the race. If something is going to be done, it's got to be done relatively soon. Broc has got his windshield wipers on for some reason, and as he exits the S's, he gets a pretty major slide there, getting on the throttle perhaps a little bit too heavily, too early. Car number 1 claiming the inside for the corner, leading up to the corner onto the straight. Broc hangs wide for just a smidge longer, looking for the switchback, and it looks like he's going to get it as they go side by side onto the straight, and car number 1 maintains a pretty solid line there, keeping his grip super high, able to build up the throttle earlier, and he does have the opportunity to open up his steering a bit more as he was on the outside. He's going to maintain track position at the moment. Broc looking to move to the inside in the braking zone as car number 1 is doing a semi-defensive move, and Broc is not quite going to be able to get his nose through. Is he? He does, side by side, looking perhaps for another switchback through the final corner, and it's not quite going to be there. Car number 1's going to cut it off, and Broc is going to have to settle into P4 for the start of the final lap. Car number 1 immediately taking a defensive line here. Broc pulling over even further as car number 1 still left the outside open, but it's not quite enough to get a good run through there. He has to back out to allow car number 1 that line, and that is really going to open up the gap onto the straight of the final lap. Broc's line honestly didn't look too bad, but car number 1 just looks a bit faster through there, and not really going to have an opportunity from that distance, so they will finish in that position. And here we go across the line on the final lap for P2. Super happy about that one. Even though we didn't get to battle too much, it was a ton of fun to just really push myself on this track in general and try and stay consistent and be competitive. So crossing the line in P2, there we are, Tyson behind us and Broc behind him. Checking on the safety rating, we did gain safety and iRating, a good bit of iRating actually, the most we've gained in a minute. Lap time's not quite there yet, hoping to work on that still. into the next race, and look who it is. Starting directly ahead of us, it's Broc Feeney, and he's actually behind Joey, so he's in a little pole racing sandwich. We got Joey, who is 1,000th faster than Broc. So that will give him P5 over Broc, who's starting in P6. However, Broc is immediately going to claim that back, saying that, you know, even if you're 1,000th faster than me, you're at least a 10th slower upon launch. The car behind me, not really looking for anything there. He's going to stay behind. I did take a semi-defensive line in there just in case he tried to send something, which separates me from the pack ahead just by a couple of tenths, but we should be able to close that up as nobody is really, nobody has clean air really ahead of us except for car number 1. Everybody is right behind each other. And honestly, there's not too many tracks or parts of tracks that I enjoy driving in traffic as much as the S's on Road Atlanta. It's just so much fun. I would say it's probably between the S's at Road Atlanta and down the mountain at Mount Panorama. Behind us, the guy who started behind us has lost another position to Ellis, who's going around the outside onto the straight. Gets a bit of understeer there, manages to keep the car on track, but is really going to compromise his run. Dali Jankovic, I don't know how to say his name, he is going to go side by side with him, and the car ahead will eventually move over in front of Dali, giving him the slipstream. So this guy is just about getting hung out to dry. Dali's going to make it work around the outside, really keeping that speed high and able to almost get a good run out of the chicane. A little bit of a slide is going to let not only Ellis through, but also Skander Khan. So two Caterpillar cars back to back are now sandwiched between two golf cars. And Skander here, he raced a lot with us on Red Bull Ring. I don't know if you remember him, but he gave us quite a battle on Red Bull Ring a couple of times, really gave us a run for our money. So we're going to keep our eye on him for just a minute as he comes out of the S's. It doesn't look like he does anything too wrong on that exit, but just isn't quite able to maintain as much speed as he probably could have. Dali is looking for a move around the outside as they go through the corner, up the hill towards the straight, and here it is, Skander on the inside. I think it was netcode contact. It's going to slide him in a terrible place, and he just leaves. He was not having that. That is a very unfortunate place to spin. I mean, right at the beginning of the straight. Skipping ahead to lap number 9, it's been a pretty quiet race for us. Broc, Joey, and myself all in the 21s. The top 4 are significantly beneath the 21s, so they are kind of, you can see ahead of us, they are pulling away. It's kind of Broc, Joey, me, or me, Joey, Broc, and then a lot of space between the top 4. And God, they were so close to each other. Just watching them race, like as we go down the S's and they're going up, or as we go down the chicane and they're coming out of it, was just really enjoyable, and I hope that I can be up there one day. Now, looking at Broc, a couple cars ahead of us as he heads onto the straight, and we've mentioned his struggles with this corner before, getting on the throttle a little bit too early that time, totally slides out, and both Joey and myself are going to pick that position up for free. It's pretty satisfying when that type of thing happens, when you just know that you're pushing the car pretty hard and that the people ahead of you are probably doing the same, and they lose it and you get to keep it. Now, fortunately, once again, big enough of a gap so that he doesn't actually lose any more positions than who was immediately behind him. So he's in P7 at the moment. We are now up into P6, following Joey, who's in P5. And Joey was running some super solid laps. As we cross the line here, we'll take a look at the laps. I ran a 21 flat on that one, which, that's honestly pretty much my goal of this entire week, was to get around the 21 flats, run a few sub 21s if we could, but I didn't expect myself to be able to run them all race. Now, this is lap number 13, and it's keeping an eye on Joey ahead, kind of missing the apex here, cutting the apex of the next bit, and then just taking the service road, deciding to say, fuck it, take the service road, take the slowdown, and he's going to give us that position for free. Bye, Joey. I'm going to miss you, dude. I will hopefully see you again this race. Foreshadowing. Coming out of the S's, yeah, we're in a pretty good spot here. Broc isn't all that far behind Joey. Joey actually has to serve a slowdown still for cutting the track. So he's going to serve it in a similar place to where Broc served his, kind of heading up towards and around the beginning of the straight. And look how close it allows Broc to go. I know that Joey probably got like a 1.5 seconds added for driving as far as he did without slowing down. Not sure what the best tactic is for serving slowdowns on this track. Lap 14, so next lap, Joey is being followed by Broc, and Joey is going to just, get loose on the exit of the S's, slide into the wall, and make contact with it, so allowing Broc free reign to try and catch me. And I know that after that last race we had, Broc probably doesn't remember me, but regardless, just as a driver, I'm sure he's the type of driver who wants to catch the person ahead. So he's closed the gap a little bit to about 3 seconds at this point. My lap times have kind of fallen off. I'm running like low 21s, 21.2, 21.3s. The group ahead is, dude, they are like half a second from P1 to P4. It is insane. And by the time lap 16 comes around, I mean, they're still in the exact same group. Francisco has slightly fallen off. He was actually the winner of the last race. He's in P4, not by any distance that he won't be able to make up though. Tice in P3 here, we are going to hop on board with as he makes his way down the S's for the 16th time, following behind Bernardo Farias, extremely fast driver. And as Tice tails him here, it's looking really solid, hopping on board with Francisco behind. Oof, gosh, hate to see that. Hate to see that. Into the wall goes Tice. He's going to try and rejoin as quickly as he can. But here I come a few seconds later, and I'm going to be able to snag that position once again for free. It looks like the nose of his car is pretty banged up. Broc follows us through as well, so both Broc and myself gaining a position. And that will move us up into P4. Taking a look at the relative as we hop onto the straight, and Broc is definitely moving faster than us. He gained about 9/10 last lap. And we only have a few laps left, so I need to put in some decent times, and here they are for the next 3 laps. They were pretty good. We got kind of beating around 21s, so by the time we cross onto the final lap, he's still behind us, although not by much. If we make one error, I think he could probably take advantage of it. By the time we get onto the straight, it's been a pretty quiet lap, and we are safely keeping him behind. He's over a second at the moment. We would really have to fuck up the chicane in order for this to go wrong, and I'm not going to do that. I am going to make sure I have a clean run through here, probably driving the chicane at about 80%, 75% of full pace, which is, you know, sometimes you have to do when you are ahead and want to keep that position. Crossing the line in P4, so another pretty good result for us, result I'm proud of, and we pull over to the side to end that one. So taking a look at the results, and there we are, once again ahead of Broc Feeney, although pretty much just because of himself. We really had nothing to do with that. I hope to battle him one day. Joey crossed the line in P11, did what he could with what happened in that race. Peep the I rating and the safety rating gains, pretty good that race. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to support me, please check out my channel, some of my other videos, and I'm willing to bet you will enjoy those as well. See you later.